Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us for another show. Happy to have on board today Sharon Bosquet, the Highgate Town Administrator. Sharon, good to see you.
Good to see you, as always.
Welcome back. Excuse my voice. I guess we should note, or I should note by saying we're taping the show on Thursday, August 1st, and happens to be the first day of the Franklin County Field Days.
It is.
And I fear, we've talked about this before, I fear this could well be the last Field Days for, boy, maybe a while. Does that sound like the case right now?
Well, we're hopeful that there's still a piece of property out there.
Yeah.
But right now they're concentrating on petitioning the state to buy the property that they're currently on.
No, really, boy, that would be, obviously, if they could ever pull that off.
Yeah, I know that they...
That's the first I've heard of that. I guess I just always heard that they were being told you gotta go away, and they'd been getting, 1 or 2 year extension on that.
Yes.
Huh.
We're hoping that first they can get another year extension.
Okay.
But hopefully the state will see the benefit to keeping the field days alive and well.
Yeah.
By making arrangements to sell that property that they're on to the field days.
Huh.
That would be, the best solution at this point.
Interesting. That's the first I've had. Has that been kicking around for a while? That's the first I've heard of that.
It's been kicking around for a few months.
Yeah.
They're...
Maybe in part because I know they checked a site in Highgate, but it sounds like they haven't come close to nailing down any other site.
No, they had a site in Franklin they were looking at.
Really?
And the select board chose not to welcome them.
Oh, is that right? I hadn't even heard about that. I remember the site in Highgate Center that they checked out.
Yeah, they weren't welcome in Franklin, so that's fine. I mean,
yeah,
to each his own, but Highgate would really like to keep them in town. I mean, it is a beneficial
for sure
thing for the town. Not that the town gains any tax money from it, but it's a good way for the agricultural people, all that are related to that, because we're all tied together with agriculture in Franklin County.
Yeah, for sure. Which I think is still the top dairy county in New England.
It is,
And if it's not the top maple syrup county in the country, I would think it would be. It's got to be like no worse than number 2 or something. So,
right.
Sure, ag is still very important.
So it's great to have that as a community event.
Yeah, it's a great event
for agricultural, people to get together.
Yeah.
For people to understand that you need to have empathy for animals, that for kids to get to be able to pet a live animal. Yeah. It's important, in a community sense all around.
Yep, I agree. Is it clear what the state wanted to do with the particular field day site? Of course, the Habitat for Humanity store, they got kicked out a while ago, but obviously right next to the airport.
Yes.
So not clear what the state had in mind for that site?
No, there are no set plans for that.
Really? Because Jim Harrison, the development that's proposed down the road, that's on the other side, on the west side, or am I wrong on
That's
that?
on the same side.
It's on the same, but not right where the field day site is.
Not right where that is, no.
Huh. Interesting.
I know that he had spoken to Field Days about possibly selling a piece of his land, but ideally it would be the spot that they're actually on.
Interesting. What does he think about this? Is he okay with the Field Day staying?
Yes, he would also like to see I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I'm told that he'd like to have the field days stay where they are. Wow. And I know that the Field Days Committee has gone around to towns and businesses in Franklin County to get support letters for Anson Tibbetts and for the governor.
The Ag Commissioner and the governor?
Yes.
Geez, well, I'm glad to hear that, because it sounded to me like, it was sure kind of sounded to me like a pretty hopeless situation here for a while. So that sure sounds like if they could ever pull that off. I mean, not to mention all the buildings here. I mean, even if they found another site, I mean, I can't imagine. We got to be talking, millions of dollars, I would think, to bring it back to what it's like now at a different site.
I know the committee said that they feel it would be a $5 million project to move it.
Easy to picture.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know that they are trying to raise awareness.
Yeah.
They are going to have free T-shirts at the field days that support their cause, and hopefully that enough people will say, hey, we really want this to stay.
Yeah.
It's important to us.
I can only assume the local legislative delegation is making some noise about this.
Yes.
So again, the hope is that the state would sell them the land.
Yes. Yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's the first I've heard. Boy, I wish them luck on that. So in any case, folks, get out and enjoy
Yes.
this year's field days.
Yeah, it might be the last,
Yeah.
but we're hoping that it's not.
Yeah.
We really hope that the state, the field days, the town, and the county can work together and make this happen.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of agriculture, you know how many dairy farms are left in Highgate? We still have some, but obviously that number seems to dwindle by the year, even as kind of milk production still seems to stay pretty stable with bigger farms just buying up smaller ones.
I believe that we have 11 left.
Yeah, so still just hanging in with double digits anyway.
Yes, but it's a hard life.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's a 24/7 job. It doesn't pay well.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get youngsters in a family to want to go into that business when you can't promise them what you could working at McDonald's.
Sure.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
You really have to love farming, whether that's Christmas tree farming or dairy or crops. You have to love what you do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do, and God bless them because they make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. And good luck if you're a young person wanting to maybe buy a farm or something. I mean, just like as with housing, geez. Good luck on that front.
Yeah, and the housing situation is getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
Especially after COVID.
Yeah. Boy, I think statewide we're down to, Vermont's down to, I think, about 500 dairy farms now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been up here for almost half a century. I wish when I blew in 1975, we were obviously talking several thousand anyway. I don't know, 3, 4, 5,000 probably. But yeah, that's pretty discouraging.
Yeah, and people come to Vermont to see cows and that agricultural life.
Absolutely. Farms, not just farmsteads, for sure.
It's changed, of course.
Yeah.
There's not so many tie barns.
Yeah.
There's a lot bigger operations that have become a big business.
Yeah.
But for many, that's the only way they can survive.
Yeah. Yeah, tough situation.
Yep.
Mention we're taping the show on Thursday, August 1st, first day of the field days. I happened to go through Highgate Center yesterday, heading out to Franklin, and I went by one deputy sheriff who was monitoring traffic, and then about a couple minutes later, as I headed out on the road to Franklin, I saw a second deputy sheriff. So I can only assume you're happy. You're definitely getting a more of a law enforcement presence these days, with the Sheriff's Department having taken over July 1st from St. Albans City PD.
Yes, we're extremely pleased with the service we're getting.
Yeah. And how much time? How many hours are you getting?
The town is contracted for 40 hours a week.
40 hours a week.
They have also provided us with some state-funded patrols for speeding and such.
Oh, really?
So we've actually gotten a lot of comments in town. Yeah. Some where, I've got to learn to slow down because there's a lot more.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been very responsive to anything that we've asked of them. The officers have been quite accommodating to the select board. I know many of the select board have stopped and spoken to the officers just so they have a relationship.
Yeah.
The officers have agreed to take them on ride-alongs.
No, really.
They want to be involved in our community, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
So far, it's been a blessing for us.
Yeah. Again, they're about one month in. And how How many years is the contract for with them?
It's for 3 years.
3-year contract.
Yeah.
Interesting. In fact, about a week or so ago, I'm often heading out to Franklin, often go through Highgate Center as opposed to 105, and of course the road from Highgate to Franklin, which was, how many stories did I write about that in many years past when it was not paved? It's
Right.
unbelievable it took so long, especially with the MVU connection in Franklin. Nothing I have to tell you, but I actually saw a deputy on that road, and that's the place where I always have people behind me. I actually have no beef with speed limits, unlike seems like most people,
Right.
and probably yourself too. Anyway, but so you're definitely getting a better presence. What are the main, seems like a few years ago, weren't ATVs a big concern? And maybe they still are, but I remember that concern a while back.
It had lessened.
Yeah.
It is picking up again.
Huh.
As part of a test pilot, we have made an agreement with VASA to have a route from the Swanton Frontage Road through town to Franklin, so that people could get from one side of the state to the other.
Yeah.
We've asked that you be a member of VASA to use that trail, that you have insurance and registration, and that you ride with a helmet and you ride the speed limit.
Yeah.
That has worked out well so far.
Yeah.
They also have access down the St. Armand Road to gas stations and stores. But we're still seeing a lot of traffic on the rail trail.
Yeah.
And we have concerns.
A lot of ATV traffic.
Yes.
Huh.
We're concerned because more and more families are using the trail,
Sure.
which is great,
Yeah.
but we don't want anyone to be hurt either.
Sure.
So if an ATV is doing 50 down the trail,
Wow.
it's going to be hard for them to stop for a family with a stroller.
And that is still happening at times?
That is still happening.
That's crazy.
We have a group of mostly youngsters that just don't seem to get the picture,
Yeah.
don't understand that that's not allowed.
Yeah.
But we still have some that run down 78.
Yeah.
At my last job, I had witnessed 3 ATVs running in the middle of traffic
Wow.
between 2 dump trucks
Wow.
at about 50 miles an hour.
On Route 78?
On 78, and I thought, you have no idea how long it takes that dump truck to stop.
Yeah.
You could be dead in a flash.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary.
Yeah. But that's really scary to hear them going that fast on the rail
yeah.
trail. That's great. That's insane.
Yeah.
More, and of course, thank you. Live right. You know
I
the rail
do.
trail pretty well.
Yes, I live right beside the rail trail.
More traffic on the rail trail, getting pretty good use.
Pedestrian traffic and bike
Yeah.
traffic has increased exponentially.
Yeah.
So to have these 4-wheelers in the mix is
Wow.
not good.
Yeah.
And it's going to deter people from using the trail,
Yeah. Sure.
which is contrary to what it's there for.
I know, tremendous resource. Boy, unfortunately, as anybody who's paying any attention to the news these days knows, unfortunately, bikers on the Swanton Highgate end of the trail are not going to be able to bike all the way to St. Johnsbury anytime soon.
No.
Boy, just seeing some of the film, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I pay attention to weather. I think this might have been a record. Of course, I love how they're calling the 8+ inches in St. Johnsbury in maybe 6 hours or so,
Yeah.
a 1 in 1,000-year event. And of course, you hear references to 1 in 100-year events. Unfortunately, those 1 in 100-year events seem to be happening every year or two these days. But
Yes.
but that's someone who pays a lot of attention to weather. That's just unbelievable amount of rainfall. And I guess some of those places got some more rain yesterday on July 31.
Yes, the
Wow.
Emergency Management of Vermont had notified all of the EMDs, or emergency municipal directors, that rain was coming and that there was possible that we could get anywhere from a 1/2 inch to 3 inches of rain in
Yeah.
particular storms.
Yeah.
So the state is doing a great job at trying to warn municipalities.
Yeah.
They're trying to get out ahead of these storms because there are there's a lot of danger in flash flooding, and the loss of homes and businesses is detrimental to a town or village.
Yeah.
But they've been doing a great job about trying to get highway departments out there, make sure your culverts are clean, make sure, that you're ready for extra water.
Yeah, but just incredible. Yeah, I've got a camp in the far reaches of the Northeast Kingdom. I'm not sure I could even get there today.
Yeah.
But geez, I just feel, I probably talked about it before, but remind me never to live in a floodplain or wildfires are likely. I mean, I just can't imagine getting flooded out one time and then to come back from that and happen. So I just feel so bad for these folks. Just a very tough situation.
It is. It's actually one of the reasons that Highgate has adopted river corridor bylaws for our zoning, to try to keep people out of those areas. Just for their own good.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that issue, that makes me think of the stream bank erosion issue, huge issue for you in Highgate.
It is.
And I guess one of the worst areas is just right kind of past the, below the transfer station, obviously on the just riverside of the transfer station. So
the transfer station tends to be a plateau of sand and clay, but at much lower levels.
Yeah.
So what happens is the excess water, of course, groundwater and surface water, tends to wash it down wherever the ravine is.
Yeah.
Right now, the town is 3/4 of the way finished on the bank stabilization project that we have going with FEMA.
At that site or just in general?
At that site.
At that site.
Yeah. Wright's Excavating is our contractor, and they've done a great job at doing a lot of work trying to get that closed landfill that we had there, plus the roadway and the transfer station, all stable, so that we can continue.
What's their main thing that they're doing to the side of the river there? Are they adding, like rocks or hard fill, or
So it's actually not the river itself; it's a stream that feeds the river.
Okay.
But of course, we don't want the landfill to fail and then go into the stream that goes into the river. But for us, this project was a huge amount of stone and different sizes of stone and different coarseness of sand in order to act as a filter. So that by the time the water, surface water, or groundwater got to the stream, it had already been filtered many times, so that we were putting clean water back into the river. But yes, it has been just huge amounts of product that have gone in there. And the idea that when the contractor went in, they dug it right down to a hard pan surface and then built this filtering system. My engineer says that slope that they have finished will never move.
Wow.
So
good to hear.
I'm holding him to it.
And they're about 3/4 finished with that project at that site?
Yes, they've done the most critical section. That was the largest section. Now they're doing a smaller section closer to our salt shed. So yes, big project. Very glad to have it done. We are attempting to renegotiate a contract with Casella because their contract ends next December.
Oh, really?
So it's good timing for us.
They'd like to stay there, I assume?
They would, yes.
And you would like them to stay?
Yes.
I mean, that's worked out pretty well. The dump closed years ago, of course, right?
Yeah. But
I guess that was Franklin County's last dump, I guess, and of course it's still the only real transfer station too in the county, I guess, right?
Yes.
Of course, I read stories. I get the Chronicle, the very good weekly paper out of Orleans County, and of course, big story there with Casella. Of course, is what the big is that the one landfill in the state, or the biggest one anyway, in
Yeah.
Coventry?
Yes.
And just a lot of concern about nearby Lake Memphremagog, of course.
Of course.
Anyway, but so that contract, so they'd like to stay there, and you'd like to
Yes.
you
So
can deal with that issue.
Yeah, the select board is trying to hammer out a lease that's both beneficial to Casella to
Yeah.
stay and for the town to host, and to make sure the site stays stable.
Yeah. That's not the only problem. There are other problem sites.
Yes.
Right. And no other, is this a one project going on now?
That's one project that's going
One
on right now.
project. Okay.
We also have the Macy Road, which is a huge erosion site. That bank is very destabilized for about 3/4 of a mile.
Wow. And some there's some houses that are having an issue with this, right?
Yes, yes. It's a well-traveled road, and it is populated. So it's not a matter of just closing the road. We have that new bridge in East Highgate that we put a lot of time and money into to make things better there.
I think your predecessor, Heidi Bridge-Valenta, spent just a few hours on that project, a few years on that project, I guess.
Yes.
And the bridge has been fine. The new bridge has worked out.
Bridge is great.
Well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Glad to have it. But now we have to make sure that the road isn't going anywhere.
Wow.
So we have a project started with VTrans that covers about 1,000-foot section, which was where the imminent danger was. Since we started that project 6 or so years ago, the danger has become more apparent along a larger section of the road.
Wow.
To fix the 1,000-foot section, they're estimating at this time $4 million.
Is that right?
Yep.
To fix a 1,000 section of road?
Yes. So it doesn't make any sense to keep fixing small sections of this road as it collapses and endangers the road and people.
Yeah.
So we had applied for a BRIC grant, which is through FEMA, for a long-term study of the Macy Road.
Yeah.
So Geodesign was our engineer, and they have come in and done monitoring wells. They put in monitoring wells with inclinometers to see the slope movement, to track it, see, what's happening there. They're checking groundwater, they're checking soil samples. They've also done some CPT testing, which is basically a pressure test against a cone penetration test.
Well, it sounds like you're getting a lot of relatively new knowledge for you on stuff like
yes. Yes. So the town needs to have information to make the appropriate decision.
And that may be just telling the homeowners, hey, folks, you gotta get out of there. In some cases,
it's possible.
Yeah.
It's also possible we may need to move the road.
Yeah.
Which causes a lot of other issues.
Yeah.
With right-of-ways and easements and possible buyouts.
Yeah.
To make the road happen. But then in the last 5 years, there hasn't been money for moving a road like that. With all the flooding Vermont has sustained, those rules are changing. So the last hazard mitigation grant the grant that's still open, we had applied for money to move the road. So for the possible purchase of some of these properties or easements, in order to do that, if it turns out that's really the most financial sense.
Yeah. Are there any houses in danger right now?
We have one home that is the closest to the riverbank.
Yeah. On the river side of the road, I assume, or
no, it's on the other side of the road.
Really?
Yes. It's a 100-foot drop.
Wow.
So if the road were to collapse,
Yeah.
it's a real safety issue.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the river will do what the river will do.
Yeah.
She's always moving.
Yeah.
It's going to go the way it wants to.
Yeah.
But we need to know, do we fix or do we abandon that and move the road
Yeah.
and make it safer?
So that's a big decision he'll have.
That is a big decision. So we
Yeah.
want as much data, concrete data as we can get.
Wow.
And we want to figure out what's the best way to deal with this.
Yeah.
Because it's not so much surface water on this project, but more groundwater.
Really?
There's 25 foot of sand there, and then it hits a very hard clay bottom.
Yeah.
So the water drains nicely,
Yeah.
but it hits that clay, and it has nowhere to go
Oh, really?
except out the side of the bank.
Interesting.
So yes, that'll be a big project.
Back to the project by the transfer station, the price tag for that, are we talking in millions here?
Yes. All told, we'll probably have about $3 million in it.
For that one project?
Yes.
Wow. How much of that are you getting, I hope, mostly outside money for that?
Yes. Yes, we have been sponsored by the Vermont Whisper program. We have also had a large chunk of the funding is coming from FEMA, and Vermont Emergency Management is also assisting with that. So yes, we've been very fortunate that the town's portion of that has been only in the hundreds of thousands as opposed to millions.
Boy, but still in the hundreds of thousands.
It is, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Speaking of projects, we got some paving going on in Highgate, or there's been some?
We paved in May, last year's paving and this year's paving.
Yeah.
So that was done in May. So part of that was the Macy Road. Also the Gore Road, the Rainville Road, and the Durkee Road had some additional paving.
Oh, yeah. Boy, I interviewed the St. Albans town folks a couple days ago. I happened to ask, how much does it cost to pave? And I think the figure Sean Adkins had for me was, I think he said about $170,000 a mile for paving.
It's awful.
Wow.
Yeah.
And obviously with inflation, those costs probably go up every year. Huh?
Yes. Well, I can say we've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
Our cost has stayed relatively
Oh, really?
the same in the last few years. So.
Yeah. Do you try to pave X number of miles a year, Sharon, or?
It depends on what we see.
Yeah.
We have areas that are a little rougher than others. We try to do crack sealing to help prolong the life of the pavement.
Yeah.
But it just depends on what we have for areas that look like they need more help than others.
Yeah.
It is our hope that eventually, instead of just trying to always do maintenance, to be able to pave some additional roads.
Yeah.
We have a lot of pieces that are dirt between two paved roads, and we'd like to take care of some of those and make it a complete paved system.
So you still do have some dirt roads?
Oh, yes.
Have a number of miles of dirt roads? I guess I haven't been on one in Highgate for a while.
Around 30 miles.
No, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And some people would prefer to live on a dirt road, and there's some areas that are not populated enough to make it feasible to pave.
Yeah, but some of those you'd like to pave ideally.
Yes. Yeah.
Last time we spoke, I guess the big news to me was village core related. Probably no surprise there.
Yes.
And you were saying that there was a possibility you might have to do a bond issue to keep that projects moving. Any more on that? Is that clear?
So yes, we've had excellent news.
Oh, really? I'm glad to hear it.
As the state has, for the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, that program has set a deadline for the end of September to have all of their ARPA funds dedicated.
Yeah.
So what they've done is those projects that cannot finish by the end of December 2026,
Yeah.
they've abandoned that money and turned it back into the state. So that money has been reallocated. So the town of Highgate has received $4 million
Wow.
for our project from the state ARPA funds from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund.
Wow, that's pretty new news.
Yes.
Wow.
So that was very helpful.
Wow.
The town has a substantial input. I mean, at this point, we're hoping we have to put in $500,000, but we may have to put up to $1 million in.
Yeah.
But
For the local share.
yes,
So it looks like you don't have to do a bond issue then at this point, or
that's what we're frankly praying on.
praying on?
Yeah, we don't want to have to ask our residents for more money.
Yeah. As we talked before, I mean, even if you're covered for a lot of that money, if people see whatever when they're voting by Australian ballot, of course, a $5 million figure and stuff,
Right.
for some folks, you're just not going to be able to say, hey, it's not nearly anywhere near as bad as it looks.
Right.
But so still not clear on that.
Yes, we're hoping to hear this week that there are some additional funds coming our way. We've been trying to work very closely with the state. We've had great success with our consultants from the state, and they've really gone out of their way to help us. So I have been notified that there is some additional funds that are not allocated. So we've applied for those funds to see if we could meet our goal without having to do any additional bond vote.
Wow. I'm glad to hear that. And of course,
Yes.
Cathedral Square comes right to mind, obviously,
Yes.
which just sounded like a real positive development. And this whole thing could have been endangered if indeed you have to go to the bond vote.
Yes. So we have a great relationship with Cathedral Square, and we're very happy to have it. But they're going forward. They've done some of their own testing.
Yeah.
They are currently waiting right now for us to finish our Brownsfield survey and to come up with a corrective action plan. And once that's finished, then we can go forward with the new subdivision on that property and eventually the sale.
So there is some work on that site that needs to be. What had been on that site?
Well, there had been a former 1800s foundry on that site. There was also a junkyard from the owner previous to the town. So there was a former town garage at that point.
No, really.
On that property. So all of these things led to some minor hazards, which we knew when we bought it that we may have to take up 6 inches of soil and move it.
Yeah.
Or if we were paving it or putting concrete over it, that would be acceptable. What's happened since 2017 when we bought the property, the lead levels that are unsafe according to the state has changed. So the lead level has dropped quite a bit to a safer level. So as a result of that, the town has had to go back in, retest some of those spots just to make sure we knew exactly what we were dealing with, how deep that infiltration was, and now the state is working on helping us develop an action plan to mitigate that hazard.
And meanwhile, the wastewater system, that's obviously a key for Cathedral Square.
It is,
and that
yes.
obviously has to be in place before we see people living in units, obviously, or before the construction, I guess.
Correct, yes.
What best case scenario? What's the best case scenario on just the time frame for all this, Sharon?
I think that we still have to do an archaeological study on individual residents' homes that want to hook onto the system.
Huh.
So that'll be the process of both figuring out who wants to hook up,
Yeah.
how much it'll cost, how and when. And once that's done, we can go through with final design. So we're hoping that we can start the wastewater system next April, May.
That's the next year, next spring.
Yes, and Cathedral Square is also hoping to start at that time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So for Cathedral Square says about 14 months for their project.
Oh, yeah. And we're talking 30 units, or am I a little low?
Yes, 30 units, 26 one-bedrooms and two two-bedrooms, or four
Four
two-bedrooms, yes.
Interesting. And I can only assume, I know people, we're already checking in on this or getting on a waiting list. I'm sure more people have done so.
Yes, the last time I checked, there was 20 people on the list already for that building, and we haven't even broke ground.
Right. Do you run into anybody who has any opposition to just having senior housing? I would think that would be seen as a pretty big plus by most people.
Yeah,
But I'm sure you get opponents for anything, I'm sure.
Yes, I mean, at town meeting, there was a pretty lively discussion about senior housing.
Huh.
I think people are in favor of the senior housing, but we're unsure whether that was the best place to put it or how much money we were going to spend to get it here, and just obvious questions that some misinformation had been circulated, and once people were more aware of what was actually being requested, 2/3 of the vote went to a positive construction for the wastewater in order to support the senior housing.
Yeah. But it seems like Cathedral Square, and again, we've talked to, is it Cindy Reed?
Cindy Reed, yes.
And in fact, I noticed St. Albans City just broke ground.
Yes.
And I noted, I think the name is Reed Commons. I can only assume that's...
It is named in
for
her
Cindy.
honor, yes.
Well, that says a lot.
She was going to retire last year.
Really?
And she changed her schedule some and said that she came back because she enjoys her position.
Yeah.
And they named that project for Cindy.
No, that's pretty impressive. That says a lot about Cindy Reed. That's great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, cannot say enough good about Cindy Reed.
Yeah. And this makes me think of the library community center. I think ideally you'd love to see a new library community center. Is that still the hope? Is that kind of part of this overall plan, or is that kind of more of a separate thing?
It's kind of a separate thing.
Yeah.
But I can tell you we do need water and wastewater, so that'll also benefit Cathedral Square and anything else that's developed there. I have had some interest in the properties for a possible daycare center, and I've had a possible person that's interested in the old Macy house and rehabbing that.
I hadn't asked you about that for a while, so someone's interested in maybe tackling that.
Yes. So we'll see what happens there.
Huh.
It's possible that they would agree to maybe commercial on the bottom and apartments on the top, which would be good.
Yeah.
But as far as the library and community center is, we can go forward if we were to receive enough grant money.
Yeah.
At this time, we have a grant out in hopes of getting $1.5 million from the library capital grant. We have not heard anything on that, so I'm a little nervous that perhaps we are not in line to get that funding. Yeah. Which would be unfortunate, but that money also comes with a timeline. You would have to have the project finished by 2026 in December.
Wow, that sounds
which
a
would
little
mean
tough.
Yeah, which would mean we'd have the library, Cathedral Square, and the wastewater and water all going on at the same time.
Wow.
And we've also applied for a sidewalk grant so that as we tear up the right-of-way along the roads for our sewer or our wastewater project, that we would install some sidewalks that had been lost over the years.
Oh, interesting. I think when I last left you were after a new Highgate Library director. Did you find one?
Our library trustees have hired a
They
new
have.
library director.
Oh.
She does not start until August 12th,
Oh, really?
but the trustees are thrilled to have her.
Is that a full-time job?
It is a full-time
Yeah.
job, yes. I have not met the individual, but I am told she is
Oh.
very ambitious and quite well experienced, so
Oh.
we're very hopeful.
So are the trustees logging a lot of time in there? Who's running the library?
We do have a part-time person. They've
Okay.
adjusted their hours,
Okay.
and all of the trustees help out.
Yeah.
They're trying to do a deep clean of the library at the moment, so that when the
Hmm.
new person comes in, that
Yeah.
they have a fresh slate to start with. But yeah, everybody is hardworking and very committed to the library and making that a good community resource.
Yeah. Back to the wastewater system that you hope to be moving on. You'd be happy, any folks in the Highgate Center area who would want to hook onto that, that'd be fine with you. You've got capacity for as many homes that could hook on or want to, or not?
We just actually heard this week that the capacity is rated for 50,000 gallons per day
Okay.
at our waste disposal site. So that's very exciting. That's
Yeah.
way more than we
Oh,
expected.
really?
Our current project is to develop to 20,000 gallons per day. Down the St. Armand Road, under 78, over to Lambkin Street, down Lambkin Street to the entrance to the disposal field. After that, we want to try going up the Gore Road and then expanding out from there.
Interesting. So you'd love to get as many people as you could on the
Yes.
on the municipal.
Yes, the original possible users have all been notified by mail.
Yeah.
They have been asked to attend a meeting. We did have some residents show up at a meeting. Their questions, of course, were very valid. How much is this going to cost
Sure.
me? How much am I going to pay a month? Do I get water, or is it just wastewater? Do
Yeah.
I have to hook up? So there's no mandatory hookup for this project.
Yeah.
The benefit is, as part of our ARPA money, the state would like the town to pay for the new septic tank pump and actually the service into their home. So at this point, if you're on that system with the town and you sign up now,
Yeah.
you get a free septic system.
Interesting.
So really, if your septic system is questionable, you'd be crazy not to hook up
Interesting.
at this, you know.
And
as we do this.
You've had some people who have.
Yes, we've
Okay.
had probably 16 takers so far,
Yeah.
and that's without the commitment of commercial.
Oh.
So we are reaching out to our commercial partners to see if they want to be included and how much gallons per day that they'll require.
Is it clear what the cost would be for a homeowner? Have you got a rough cost? What it would cost for if
We
folks do hook up?
are trying to narrow that down, but we are thinking that it'll probably be around $50 a month.
$50 a month.
So roughly $600.
Yeah.
But with the $20,000 system that's yours,
Yeah.
that could go a long way.
Yeah.
And if you were to sell your
I
home,
was going to say, you think it would make the home more valuable?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boy, you have a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. It's like being a juggler.
Yeah. You've been in the job for how long now?
I started June 20th of last year,
Wow,
so
so little-
a year.
So just a little over a year.
Yeah.
And well, it sounds like you have plenty to do, but it's been a good job where you're happy.
It has been a very good job.
You don't have too many days of be careful what you wish for. I'm sure they happen once in a while, probably.
There are challenges, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. There are times when you think, okay, how am I going to work this out?
Yeah, I bet.
Like the bond thing, you know, how do we get around having to ask people for more money?
Yeah.
So far, we've been successful at that, so yippee.
Yeah. We touched on the airport a little bit, but again, potential for just a lot of activity out there in the future. Again, the water sewer line extension already approved. Is that happening this summer or not till next year now? Or
That is happening in 5 weeks.
oh, is that right?
Yes.
This is the extension from MVU to the airport.
Correct. So water and sewer will come up 78 and then go down Airport Road.
Okay.
The contractor's bid and everything is all closed and awarded. They will start on September 2nd with a completion date of the end of May of next year.
Wow, so going right through winter, huh?
They'll have a downtime for their winter break, but it's only, I think, 4 months. So
4 months or 4 months?
4 months.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
That's right. I guess ideally that would have been nice had that been more warm weather months, but didn't happen.
Yeah.
You ran into some delays with that.
Yes, we had some delays with EDA, and we needed to make sure that they were on board because they're our largest funder.
Right. But there's movement, and the state did what? Widen the runway. The runway was
widened it, repaved it, and extended it.
So it was lengthened also.
Yes.
Interesting.
So the FAA and state have put a lot of time and money into developing the airport and expanding it, which is great.
What is there? And they did that aside from the development. We talked about Jim Harrison. Right. What was the state's interest in doing that?
I think it had a lot of support, especially from the governor's office for economic development for the county.
Yeah, and there's tremendous potential for that there.
It would be a huge boom.
Yeah.
There are already, I think the gentleman that runs the airport for the state, he told me there are roughly 20 corporate jets at the airport now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. There's also a flight school. There's a parachute school. There is the Habitat for Aviation, which is teaching young people aircraft mechanics, flight training. There's a lot of...
That's great.
Yeah.
As we have Beta Technologies.
Absolutely.
Not far away in Burlington with, of course, their presence in St. Albans Town with their batteries.
Yes.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
No,
and Beta has actually been a supporter of that program as well.
Yeah. So already a lot going on out there.
Yes. And there is a lot of interest from Canadians to have hangar space. So I know that the state has done some Act 250 permitting to allow for more hangars to be built. We're in the process right now of trying to coordinate having the hangar owners determine whether they would like sewer and water at their hangars. So yes, there's a lot of things in the works for the airport, and we're very hopeful that Mr. Harrison can keep on the commercial and industrial development. I know Tim Smith from the Franklin County Industrial Development Corps is also, very interested in having that expansion, and we want to provide good jobs for our young people.
Sure.
Because we want them to stay in our town.
Sure.
And if they can make a good living without having to drive all the way to Burlington.
Tremendous.
Yes, that's 2 hours they'd save out of their day where they could spend with their family, their children, whatever.
When I talked to Tim Smith, with everybody seems like every company facing labor shortages, but of course Tim, also the mayor of St. Albans, would say if we could just get convinced, a small percentage or a percentage of the people who drive to the Burlington area every day, hey folks, stay here. We got some jobs for you here.
Yes.
Why, again, spend an hour or two commuting every day?
Right. I mean, I used to work in Plattsburgh, and
No, did you really? So good, good hour each way, anyway? Or
oh yes.
Anyway.
So,
Oh,
I mean, to have that time back
sure.
for myself is fantastic.
Yeah. I grew up in the suburban Boston area. My father was hooked into Route 128. You know, I didn't get his electrical engineering genes in me, but for probably 30 years he just slugged it out on good old Route 128. Just the time he spent commuting was just unbelievable. But you know, do what you got to do.
Well, and the traffic's becoming
Sure.
worse and worse as you drive to Burlington.
Yeah.
When you exit Burlington around 4 to 5,
Yeah.
as you're coming north, I mean, you have traffic coming off the interstate from Winooski and Milton, and it's all backed up into the interstate.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm glad not to have to deal with that.
Yep, I hear you. Same. I can't imagine getting into I go to Montreal once in a while. Just the airport is just I guess maybe any big city. Boston is horrible issues, but just going to the Montreal airport, the congestion. Once you usually get to Champlain Bridge, okay. Then heading out to the airport is just a nightmare.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know you can't speak for Jim Harrison, but as soon as the water and sewer lines are extended, he would presumably or start moving on whatever he's moving on, or any thoughts on what his plans are? Or
I believe they are going through the Act 250 permit now.
Yeah, okay.
So that does take a while.
Yeah.
So we're hopeful that they can move on that soon
Yeah.
and get things in order to do commercial industrial development in whatever form we can help with.
Yeah. So bigger planes with the runway widened and lengthened, some bigger planes can now use the airport?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we're not talking anything. We're not talking helping out Burlington Airport or anything. I have heard a few rumblings about Air Guard down the road. Do you hear any rumblings about those folks having a presence here, maybe? Or
well, I know we had thought perhaps we'd get the National Guard.
yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, and it seems that they have signed. They have signed a contract with Swanton to move
I gotcha.
over near Tractor Supply.
Right.
So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah.
But yes, we'd love to have Beta come.
Yeah.
This would give them.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd give them a great test spot.
Have there been some discussions with the Beta folks about that? Any?
We had a little bit of discussion, you know, to see whether they'd be interested. At one time, I know we talked about maybe Pratt and Whitney would come and move if we had a good trained labor source.
Yeah.
Whether they'd, invest in Highgate and say, okay, due to the Habitat for Aviation and you're training these children and young adults, I should say, to be aircraft mechanics.
Yeah.
It makes more sense for us to come and put those skilled labor to use.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're hopeful that even if we had DHL or FedEx or UPS where they're crammed in the airport in Burlington.
In fact, I've heard them mentioned also, but nothing nailed down on folks like that.
No.
Yeah.
So that's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
The airport, my understanding is the airport would be long enough now for prop jets to fly in, which is basically cargo planes.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can make something work that is beneficial to everyone.
Yeah. No, the potential out there is just seems almost unlimited.
Yes.
Interesting. The Highgate Springs Port of Entry, I know they got, I think, a fair amount of bucks. Is there? I don't believe, I go through there once in a while. That upgrade hasn't started, I don't think.
No,
But
I think
that'll happen at some point, I guess.
Yeah, I think they're still in the design phase.
Yeah. But I guess sounds like a serious upgrade with a few $1 million in there, I think.
Well, and they need to.
Yeah.
They have
Been
one
a
lane of
while.
commercial traffic, which is not enough for that port.
Yeah.
So they need to have upgrades.
Yeah.
They really do. Just to provide services for
Yeah.
what comes through the border now, say nothing of
Yeah.
any expansion.
Yeah. And one of these years, we'll see the last section of the, what is it, Autoroute 35, whatever. Folks will be able to get to Montreal even quicker and stuff.
Yes.
I never hear a nailed down date for that. Sometimes I'll ask folks at the border even, and they usually laugh at me when I ask them that. But
Yeah.
anyway, I assume there's some stuff going on there.
Well, government tends to move at the speed of snail, so I'm sure their government isn't any different.
How's Missisquoi Bay faring this summer, Sharon?
Actually, we've been working with the state
Yeah.
Agency of Natural Resources because they have found a very large field of water chestnut.
Oh, really?
So we have a flotilla of canoers and volunteers that have
really?
been
Going
going
after them?
out and hand picking the water chestnut.
Wow.
and
So
bringing it.
one section in particular?
Yeah, it's I want to say Gander Bay,
Huh, interesting.
but yes, it's extremely large field that they
Really?
didn't realize, and one of their biologists had happened to see it.
Oh, really? Is that the first time that there's been a water chestnut issue in the bay, or
In that bay, yes.
is that right?
Yes, they had done a lot of work in the wildlife refuge
Yeah,
and had,
yeah, that sounds right.
yes, but this is additional
No,
growth, so they want to try to control it before it's uncontrollable.
yeah,
It's my understanding it'll choke out everything else.
huh.
But they're hand picking it, so God
Wow.
bless them there.
Boy, that sounds like. I saw the weed harvester. In fact, just interviewed the St. Albans town folks. Didn't happen to ask them. Hadn't thought of the weed harvester. And then
Yep.
a couple days ago, I'm driving down to Kilcare, and there's a weed harvester doing its thing.
Yeah. But they've been doing a good job.
Yeah,
They've been there 3 weeks already, and they plan
Yeah.
on being there another 2 weeks.
really.
So they've been hot and heavy into the weeding.
Interesting. And my many years in Franklin County, it seems like I've gone from St. Albans Bay being kind of the poster child for Vermont's water quality issues for lakes, then
Yeah.
the Missisquoi Bay, and then it seems like maybe Lake Carmi has been on top, or if that's an intro. As you know, I guess the aerator situation didn't work on Lake Carmi. I guess that's on the way out. And I guess
Yeah.
Alum, I talked to Dave Benyon,
Yes.
the select board chair, good guy. And I guess the alum, I guess that's pretty solid. I think he said the state is picking up all of that cost, which is not
good.
cheap, as you can
Yeah,
imagine. So I think that's happening at the end of next summer, I guess, is a plan for fall of 2025. But boy, ongoing issues that never seem to go away.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, I'm sure that we are all culpable for that damage,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, going back in time
But,
a lot. Boy,
you know.
time flies. Anything you want to throw out in another 20 seconds or so?
No, happy
What
to
about
be here.
Summer Sounds? Is that gone?
No, Summer Sounds
I've
is...
been missing him. Dick Harper still doing his thing, or somebody else?
he had retired.
Yeah, good for him. A lot of years for Dick.
Our rec director, Jess Bombard,
Huh. Oh,
has
great.
been arranging it, and it's been at the arena, and we have a brand new stage.
Oh, great. That's why
so-
I've been looking outside at the old, anyway, so that's
Yes.
still happening.
Yes.
Anyway, great. On that note, we'll call it a day. Thanks to Sharon Bosquet, the Highgate Town Administrator. Sharon, you covered a lot of ground as usual. Thank you. And thanks to my producer, Alan Cunningham. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. Thanks for watching us and dealing with us here at Northwest Access TV. See you next time.